This is 2020, and as I'm sure most of you are aware, it will soon be coming to an end. The end of a year, especially one as trying as this, will always be a good time to reflect and get yourself ready for the next trip around the sun. And what better way to look back than to focus on every little mistake that the comment section so kindly pointed out for you. That's got to build up that holiday cheer. But in all seriousness, it is always important to highlight areas where things can be improved, explained better, or corrected, especially in a situation where so many people tune in twice a week to listen to Mr. Economics Man talk about whatever it is that he decides is interesting. So, welcome to all the mistakes that Economics Explained made in the year 2020. We will be breaking this video down into three main categories: minor issues caused by simple human error, issues that could have potentially caused confusion, and yes, even a few major issues that do need to be corrected so that we may sleep at night knowing that all of our wonderful viewers are learning all of the right things. This video is brought to you by Acorns, the app that puts you in control of your financial future. With features like recurring contributions, you can make investments into your portfolio every day, week, or month, allowing you to spend less time trying to time the market and more time in the market. One feature that I absolutely love from the Acorns app is Smart Deposit, which helps you to save money before you can spend it. Just snap a picture of your check and set up ACH direct deposits and you're all set. When your funds hit your account, Acorns will instantly move a percentage of your deposit right into your savings, investment, or retirement accounts. Acorns cares about your financial future, and that's why I'm proud to work with them. In fact, they're such great mates that we've teamed up with them to provide all Economics Explained fans with a $5 sign-up bonus to help kickstart your own portfolio. Learn more at acorns.com/ee, the link is on the screen right now and in the video description below. So what better way to get stuck into this video than to address the most recent, most glaring and most commented on mistake made in 2020. In the video on the economy of Cyprus, we were exploring how the nation had effectively been selling passports to wealthy global millionaires and billionaires, which gave these unscrupulous individuals access to all of Europe thanks to Cyprus's membership in the EU. Unfortunately, it turns out that Cyprus only has membership in the EU, which is not a word and definitely does not grant any special working permissions to passport holders. A similar oopsie happened in our video on Cyberpunk 2077, where we gave Night City a rather dismal score on the Economics Explained leaderboard, only for them to turn that bad news around with a surprise boost in editing that took their final score from a subpar 5.6 to a respectable 7.2. The screen numbers not matching up with my mouth numbers was also an issue in our video on South Africa, where we were comparing income Gini coefficients and said this: the People's Republic of China has an income Gini coefficient figure of 0.47. Another on-screen whoopsie that was a bit more embarrassing was in our video on gross domestic product and why it was overrated, where we also explained gross national product, which is an alternative measurement that includes foreign business operations. Gross national product is a very useful tool, but unfortunately I have no idea what gross national product is, so oh well. Jumping from our most recent videos right back to the beginning of the year, we released a video on Germany, and in discussing the construction of the Autobahn, we showed this clip here, which is a bridge that is not in Germany. This is particularly embarrassing considering that this bridge is actually in Norway, so I definitely should have known better. The other thing with this video is not a mistake per se, but it did sound like the narration was being delivered by Busta Rhymes. To show you what I mean, this audio has not been sped up. It has overflowed into other nations that have been less stable. Germany is today home to a system called the social market economy, or Rhine capitalism. Fortunately these days, Economics Explained has a full-time audio engineer whose sole job is to make my lovely Australian accent sound as smooth and silky as a lullaby. Now, going back to ill-informed footage selection, just a few weeks later, I made that minor slip up over German highways look trivial when I said, "This is Iran." Yeah, no. That is actually Turkey. If the world-famous Blue Mosque was not enough of a giveaway, perhaps the huge body of water in the background should have been, given it's something that Iran's capital city famously lacks. This led to absolutely the most hilarious comment section ever, as I got rightfully grilled over and over and over again about this terrible mistake. And you might have thought that I would have learnt my lesson at that point, but nope. A few months later, this is Brazil. Again, that is a Spanish town that just so happens to have a Jesus statue. Turns out this guy is pretty popular worldwide. Now fortunately there hasn't been any footage mishaps quite as bad since, but there were still plenty that probably flew under the radar. This is the University of Nairobi in Kenya, not South Africa. This is Estonia, not Finland. This is Malaysia, not South Korea. And this is the Pantheon, which is not in the Vatican. Oh, and Hong Kong made it on the top of the Economics Explained leaderboard, not Hong Kong. Apparently flags have caused some issues too, but this still confuses me. The first one was this flag of the United Kingdom, which many comments said was upside down. But I still don't get this one. The Union Jack is symmetrical, you can flip it either way and it's all the same. I think people might have meant it was being blown from right to left on screen, but hey, don't blame me for the wind. Another common flag complaint is that this was the flag of Ireland and not the flag of Italy. Well, two things here. Firstly, all your nations out there need to stop with the 3 vertical stripes, it gets very confusing. And the second is that, yeah, this is kind of orange looking, I'll give you that, but the background is very obviously Italy, but I could see how it would be easy to get confused. This segues us nicely onto our next set of mistakes, which could cause confusion. So far, all of these mistakes have been simple errors that anybody could just tell was a human slip-up or oversight. Not great, I'll admit, but it's not going to do any harm to anyone's understanding of economics. Although, there were a few problems that we found that may. In our video on Tesla, there were 2 such issues. The first and largest was that we said the company was unprofitable for a select group of years. Now this was technically true, and we even put a little disclaimer on screen, but Tesla has turned a profit now in a few consecutive quarters. And while they haven't reported a full financial year with a profit, it is unfair of us to say it was a profitless company. So sorry about that, especially to people who listen to Economics Explained on Spotify and would not have been able to see our on-screen disclaimer. The next mistake in this video is that I said that there were only 3 models in the Tesla lineup currently. The Model S, the Model 3, and the Model X. Which is not true because there is also the Model Y, which is for sale in a few countries. My only defense of this one is that the Model Y is not available in Australia yet, and I probably should have done my research better. Speaking of which, in that same video, we were exploring vertical and horizontal integration in manufacturing, and I used the example of the Volkswagen Group building a Bentley, Porsche, Lamborghini, Audi, and Volkswagen on the Tiguan platform, where these cars were actually built on the Touareg platform. I would like to consider myself a car guy, so this whole video was not my finest hour. Similarly, in our video on Brazil, we were looking at how geography had caused some major issues for the nation's industrial potential over the years, and I said that the whole country is covered in the Amazon rainforest. In reality, Brazil is absolutely massive, and only about 60% of its landmass is taken up by the Amazon. Another confusing remark came in our most recent video on Cyprus, where we were looking at Saxo Bank's predictions that the other Amazon would purchase the island nation to use as their very own little tax shelter. I said that Saxo Bank was a small investment firm, when in reality, they are one of the biggest investment banking groups in all of Europe. Now, speaking of misleading, many people complained that our video on the economics of prisons wasn't actually a video on the economics inside prisons, but rather it was on the prison industrial complex. To clear this up, we have now changed the name of that video, but sorry for those of you who wanted a deep understanding of the exchange rate between keistered cell phones and ramen packets. Although, to make it up to you, if this video gets 10,000 likes, I will make a video of the economy within prisons. However, I am relatively confident we won't reach that because perhaps another mistake was actually making this video at all. To date, the video on the Economics Explains Mistakes of 2019 is the least viewed video on this channel. So, why am I making another one? Well, some might say it was a valiant pursuit of academic integrity, and some might say I needed an easy video to write and edit whilst recovering from all the food I ate on Christmas Day. That's up to you to decide. Oh, and speaking of self-serving, a fair few of you have asked why I like all of my own videos, and the reason is, well, I don't know. The first video I liked myself was my video on the economy of EVE Online, which was the first video on this channel to really take off, and ever since then it's almost been a superstition. With this, we should now look at a few things that we got just plain wrong. This is the most important part of the video, because if you do watch this channel to learn things, it's really important that you learn the right things. And to ensure that this is always the case, we have to be able to admit that we get something wrong from time to time so it can be corrected. I will start with our video on the financial independence retire early movement. The central concept of this idea is that people should be able to save and invest enough money to live comfortably off their portfolio returns without the need to earn an income from traditional employment. The FIRE movement simplifies how much you need to save and invest into a rule where if you can live off 4% of your portfolio's value, you can theoretically live forever without running out of money based on historical returns and inflation rates. In our video, I said the rule was 3%, which was a much more conservative figure normally used by a group that identifies as Fat FIRE. Fat FIRE is just like the traditional crowd that want to achieve financial independence, but they also want to live a life of luxury without making the usual sacrifices needed to save a large portion of a modest income. For this reason, people in this niche of the FIRE movement tend to target very high-paying fields of work and normally seek to live off 3% of their net worth, because that means that their incomes will grow over time, even in retirement. If someone has $10 million invested into the market and makes a 7% average return, that person would be $700,000 richer. If inflation averages 2%, it means in reality, the real value of that portfolio has only increased $500,000. If you add a 1% margin of error, that means that you have a typical 4% rule and you can live happily ever after. Although, if you drop that down to a 3% rule, not only do you have even more safety that your investments will be able to fund your lifestyle forever, but you also have the ability to reinvest an extra $100,000 per year, which means that your portfolio will be worth an extra $1 million every 7 years thanks to more compound interest. So, there we go. We can use this mistake as a learning opportunity, but the takeaway should be that the 3% rule is very conservative and by no means the consensus amongst the financial independence crowd. Another point that was just plain wrong was when we were looking at the economics of Brexit and said that there was some major turbulence caused in Europe in 1991 after the reunification of Germany, when in fact, Germany was reunified a year earlier in 1990. And finally, in one of our most popular videos of the entire year, we looked at how the Chinese economy would benefit from the dumpster fire of 2020. In this video, we were looking at how China was investing into up-and-coming African nations as a way to generate returns and also to spread influence. We said that through a practice of putting countries into unserviceable debt and then repossessing public assets, China had been able to claim Kenya's largest shipping port in Mombasa, which was wrong. The port of Mombasa is still very much owned by Kenya's Port Authority, although there was a time where it looked like it could go either way. What we should have said is that a Chinese state-owned multinational, or more specifically China's Merchant Group, owns the port of Djibouti, and even then their ownership is very much divided and contested with the state. This is not to say that debt trap diplomacy is not real, but these were not the right examples of such policies. Now, I'm sure there are hundreds of other mistakes out there, and we have made a mistake by not picking up on them for this video, but c'est la vie. I'm sure that the comments section will kindly point out all of that, which is great. It will give us a list to work off for this video next year. Alright, why not? Let's put all of those comments to rest asking for the economics of Economics Explained by putting the economy of Economics Explained on the Economics Explained leaderboard. Starting with size. Well, the whole thing is basically run by 3 people. We don't have any international trade deals and we import basically all we consume, so with a GDP of effectively 0, that's really all I can give it as a score. GDP per capita, on the other hand, well, that should actually be pretty good. Just by the virtue of the fact that Australia and the USA, where we all live, are advanced economies, it gets an 8 out of 10. Stability and confidence. Well, this video is anything to go off. We certainly are not perfect little Switzerland, but we also aren't the infographics show, so let's give it an even 5 out of 10. Growth has been crazy. Since the time we made this video last year, the channel has grown from 200,000 subscribers to over 800,000, which, thank you all so much for your continued support. It really is amazing how converting a few old university papers into video essays has grown to be the most amazing opportunity to teach and entertain so many people every week. But to avoid sounding like an Oscars speech, 400% year-on-year growth can only get a 10 out of 10. Finally, industry, and well, if my parents and society at large are to be believed, well, I guess we don't have a real job, so we get a 0 out of 10. And so concludes the economical economics of Economics Explained, and with an average score of 4.6 out of 10, We go here on the Economics Explained leaderboard, which, you know what, could be better. Oh well, always next year. Fortunately, we can set ourselves up for that success by maybe doing some more proofreading and, most importantly, investing into our future. The former is kind of hard, and the comments section always seems to do better than we ever can, always about 20 seconds after we upload a video, but the latter is made easy with Acorns. Acorns is more than just an app. Trusted by more than 8 million people, including myself here at Economics Explained, Acorns is your financial partner to help you grow your wealth. With features like roundups, you can automatically round up your debit and credit card purchases to the nearest dollar, investing the difference right into your diversified portfolio. If you want to grow your portfolio even faster, you can also use the recurring contributions tool, which lets you make automated investments every day, week, or month. Just choose the frequency and the amount and you're all set. Acorns will take care of the rest. But perhaps the best feature of all of this is that you don't have to inconvenience yourself with trying to pick the right stocks and bonds. That's because Acorns provides you with 5 pre-constructed portfolios to choose from, based on your risk profile, ranging from conservative to aggressive. And speaking of asset allocation, each Acorns portfolio is comprised of highly liquid and diversified ETFs from top money managers like BlackRock and Vanguard. Diversified, as in really diversified, like giving you exposure to over 7,000 securities in one investment diversified. Try it out at acorns.com/EE, and Acorns will deposit $5 into your portfolio to help you get started with investing. I could not be happier with my own Acorns account, and I truly can't say enough great things about them. Again, that's acorns.com/EE. The link is on the screen now and in the video description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.